Brian and Ryan Live. I am Brian with Realty World in Radcliffe, and this is Ryan Wheeler with United Residential Mortgage here in Elizabethtown. And today we are going to be talking about the housing industry and some changes that have been going on with the interest rates because people have been expecting it to come down.
Yeah.
So Ryan, what's going on with those interest rates?
Yeah, so they're on the downtrend from where they were just a few months ago. In October, they were nearly just about kissed 8% basically. But so they've come down a little bit, but recently they have hit a little bit of a speed bump, and the reason is because of the Fed's fight on inflation, basically. So inflation ultimately is bad for mortgage rates at the end of the day, and so anytime some report comes out saying that inflation is up, that's going to be bad for rates. So rates are up a little bit marginally from where they were just a couple weeks ago. So these past couple weeks we got some really negative reports that were bad for mortgage rates. So mortgage rates are up a little bit from where they were, but nowhere near what they were. So the downtrend is going to continue for the rest of the year, but there's going to be some spikes up and down. It's just going to happen. It's going to be part of the volatility. At the end of the year, though, rates are going to be substantially lower than where they're at now. But when you see these little jumps in interest rates, I think that buyers need to know. Some buyers will get out of the market temporarily because they'll see a jump in the interest rate and they'll say, "Wait, we need to wait. We need to pull back on this."
You know, digest what's going on in the market.
Exactly. But so what you need to think of, if you want to be a home buyer, you want to buy a home right now, you need to understand that hey, that is an opportunity for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's actually an opportunity. It says, hey, if some buyers get out of the market, I stay in the market. That's less competition for me, right? Like that means, so if I'm going to look at a house that's in the sweet spot that we're calling it, 250 price range, right?
Sure.
Let's say we got 5 buyers that want to make an offer on that one house, which is not unusual right now, right? Well, if 3 of those people get out, now you got 2 buyers, the chances of that bidding war, it's not going to be as intense, right? And you may be the only buyer left over. Actually, some of those other ones, so you now have an opportunity to maybe not pay over asking price. Maybe you can get the seller to pay $5,000 in closing cost or buy your rate down or whatever. You know, you're going to get things that you're not going to get when you have other buyers in the market. And when rates come down, it's just basic economic. Exactly. Everybody has to remember, we got short memories, but in COVID, what happened? When rates came down, the herds of people, everybody
was a buyer.
Exactly. And so what that do? It caused bidding wars, drove up home prices 20% year over year, and now here we are with higher home prices. And so, but I think we know that home prices aren't going back to what they were. Interest rates are almost 8%, and we still had home prices didn't go anywhere. The Fed tried to do everything they can or could that's why they started to raise the cost of money. The federal funds rate is to make rates go up. And so they were hoping that it would ultimately drive prices down a little bit, right? Ultimately, but it didn't happen. So
just to jump on that real quick, the issue really has to do with inventory, not with interest rates, because people are thinking the interest rates are going to push all these buyers away,
right?
And it
did a little bit, right?
It did, but there's always people that want to buy homes. There's always people that will accept the interest rate as it is and buy the inventory that we have.
Exactly.
And the true issue that we have is, if it goes back to the 2008 real estate collapse, we killed off a lot of builders, and we've been in a deficit of building.
You have a surplus of homes.
We're at a deficit of being able to build enough homes for over a decade. And now when we hit COVID and everybody became a buyer, now we're paying the piper for that deficit of over a decade. And now, because that deficit has come to light, there's no inventory. So even though there are a few buyers, and
it's not enough houses to meet the demand.
It's still, the demand is high, and the supply is non-existent. And
just during COVID, you had 10 people wanting to buy a house for every house that was available, right? Now you may have 5 people for every one house. And I'm doing simple math here just to kind of give people an idea. But when rates come down, when rates hit 8%, maybe you only had 2 or 3 people wanting to make an offer on this house, right? So the demand is down, but it's still not enough. When you have homes that are sitting there and you don't have any buyers for those homes, that's when you may start to have a surplus. And we haven't had that since 2014. 2014. We haven't had a surplus, meaning more homes than what you actually had buyers in the marketplace. You know what I mean? I actually posted a chart on Facebook yesterday on this, the 2024, I put a little graph, 2024 market outlook, and it basically shows household formations, which is when new families get together. Those is your biggest predictor of home buyers, right? And then it showed completions. Completions means new home builds from new builders. The formations towers over the completions. This means you got way more buyers than what you do homes being built, you know. And we were already, before COVID, inventory was already bad, and then you throw 2%, 3% interest rates on top of that, man, you're just making the situation worse. So this brings us to the question, this is the biggest concern, because I talk to people every day, you know, being in mortgage lending, they have these big concerns like, I don't want to overpay for a house, you know, and this process seems overwhelming. All this information, this is scary. I feel like that I'm going to be overpaying for a house right now.
And that's a lot of people are asking real estate agents when they're working with a buyer.
Right.
And they say, hey, you know, what should we offer on this house? That's all, you know, they'll say, I love this house, but what should we offer for it? Yeah. That's like their number one question, because that concern is so real to them. Yeah. Nobody wants to
pay sticker.
Pay sticker price on the car. Everybody thinks that, you know, you go to the car dealership and that's just the starting point. But what really can we get for this? Right. And like you had mentioned, if there's several buyers, sticker price is starting price. Yeah. And we're only going up from there. And if there's not a lot of buyers to compete with, we can then go down or ask for concessions and things like that to actually go down, which makes it kind of good right now that if interest rates go up, we're going to get the pause in buyers to allow
exactly what I was just saying.
To jump in and
get a better deal, basically, or have a better opportunity for a deal.
You buy the home, but you're renting the rate, and then come back later.
Absolutely. The purchase price of the home is permanent, but the rate can be temporary, right? When you buy that house, that purchase price is forever, but the rate, you can refinance that as soon as 6 months. After 6 months of payments, basically after you bought the house, you made 6 months payments. If rates drop, you can turn around and refinance. And a lot of lenders, if you go back to, you know, will do a no cost refi or no lender fee refi. So the cost is very minimal as well. So it makes all the sense in the world to take advantage of that. And also, I think some people tend to over sensationalize the concept of interest rate. Like, you know, if rates go up, if they went up, for example, from 6.875 to 7.25, it sounds absurd, right? And I know, because interest rates, that does sound ridiculous from what they've been. But that little marginal increase, I mean, it might only be $50 a month on their payment. I think when people see the dollar amount of the difference on their payment, they may realize, okay, maybe I don't want my payment to go up. Nobody does, right? But you also realize maybe $50 a month isn't enough for me to actually pull back out of the market entirely, right? You know what I mean? So I think these marginal increases we visualize in our head, they're going to make these big differences on our monthly payment, and they don't all the time. You know, sometimes they do. I mean, if you're buying a $500,000 or more home, maybe it does, you know, but that's not the case for most people in our market, you know. So, but as far as, I think the activity piece though, like I think we have seen a lot more activity this year. What are you seeing? I mean, activity-wise, of buyers in the market and
buyers coming back in January. It seems you know, December was a little bit slow. That's traditional. That, you know, you got holidays. They got going on vacation because schools are shutting down.
Right.
And what have you. And then winter, but especially as soon after that winter freeze we had in January.
Nobody wants to look at a house when it's freaking cold outside.
Or the roads haven't been plowed or what have you. But once the weather got better, buyers were coming out, and we have used an app called Showing Time to coordinate. The agents are going to the homes so we're not overlapping. I'm here right now, so you come after me, kind of thing. You know, that's
take a number.
You just don't want to have two people trying to get in the home at the same time. So we use this app, and on our listings, I can see that the activity is ticking up. Since that frozen week we had in January, that the buyers are coming out. We're getting a lot of activity at the prices that we're listing them at. So that even if they're not putting offers in, it means that buyers are looking at the photos, they're seeing the list price, and is attracting them enough to say, I want to go look at it.
Getting a little frisky. Yeah.
And that it's interesting to me that there are people wanting to go see this.
More so than probably maybe normal, you think, this time of year, or?
Well, compare it to the last couple of years.
Yeah, last year probably.
I mean, when the interest rate shot from, the COVID 2 to 5, the buyers were still like, wait, what happened? I thought it was at 2%.
Yeah.
But then went from 5 to
6
over 8
to 7 to 8.
Then the buyers really stopped because they were trying to digest what was happening, where's it going to end, are they going to come back down? Then all of 23, we thought interest rates were going to drop.
Yes.
And so a lot of buyers were waiting for the interest rate drop, or waiting for the price drop.
Right, trying to time the market, basically.
Yeah, neither one of them happened.
No.
Which shocked me. I thought for sure the interest rates were going to drop, but I knew, but house prices went up, interest rates kind of stalled, but now here we are in 2024, and consumers are seeing house prices are still going up, and interest rates are going to do whatever the interest rates do.
And time in the market is just...
Therefore, we really need to go. We call this idea of pent-up demand in economics. That I've needed a home, and I've waited. And I've waited, and now I need to buy. And we're getting the next buyer that waited and waited, needed to buy. And the discomfort of waiting can only take on so long.
Especially if you're renting. And paying another landlord's mortgage.
Or living with your parents.
Or living with your parents. That's a good one too.
Your
family or
who's
somebody
married and has kids, and you're looking like, gosh, I've been waiting for 2 years to buy my own place, and the conditions just aren't getting right. And that's called pent-up demand. And there's so much pent-up demand in today's market that these buyers are going to plow back in. And if you said, like, if this interest rate drops down to what are we're probably at ballpark low 7s, high 6s, if we drop to low 6, high 5s, it's going to be a wild market. That pent-up demand.
And I think that we can get there this year. Predictions are that it will get there this year.
And when that happens, it's going to be a mad rush of people getting out there, because that pent-up demand is going to explode out. And then
that could happen during the summer when that could be. Now imagine when rates drop in the middle of the summer of buying season. Prime season.
Well, here specifically in our community,
PCS season.
The Fort Knox.
June.
The PCS is the permanent change of station. That's when the military families want to move with the military because of the school year. So that's when we get the biggest movement.
So if you're a local competing with those people, you're a local competing with a military guy who has to move here, you're not winning that bid. He's going to outbid you all day. We see it every year.
When I moved to Fort Knox with the military, I was throwing bids that were 10,000 over asking.
Exactly.
I was winning.
And a local guy is going to say, forget it, he can have it. You know what I mean? They're just going to give up on it. And so you're going to miss opportunities for sure. Yeah, I agree. So I think what a lot of people are out there asking is, like, I know I'm getting asked this question a lot, is, man, I feel overwhelmed with all this, and I feel like I'm going to overpay, like, the idea. So I feel like it's up to us as real estate industry professionals, because, we're going to, it's like, you want to tell people it's a great time to buy, but then if you're in the industry, it's like you got commission breath or something, and that's just not true. But that's not the case, because it's real estate, right? We know, like, when is the best time to own, like, when is the best time to buy? Well, it's now. Why is it? When is the best time to own? When is the best time not to own, right? Like,
well, the best time to buy was 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Just like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
That's the perfect metaphor.
And the next best time is today.
Exactly.
Right?
It's true. It's dead true. There's really never been a situation that you could look back that made sense. I talk about this all the time to people too. I bought a house in 2006. Everybody knows what happened in 2008, right? I sold that house probably a little over 10 years later and made a $65,000 profit on the house. So do you see what I'm saying? So I bought it.
Time to buy.
Right, exactly. I bought the house 2 years before the market crashed, and yet still, now granted it took me longer, right? I sold my house a little over 10 years after I bought it, but I still made 65. I mean, it was like a 30-something%, 35% profit. So time healed, right? Time gained that appreciation back over.
Let me ask you this. You said you bought the house in 06. It collapsed
08.
In 08.
Right.
But you sold it in 2015, 2016 timeframe.
Yeah.
So in that time, did you actually ever lose any money?
No.
So you were
because I never sold it.
Yeah.
So there was no real loss. It was just made up money, right?
Yeah,
like
it's
kind of in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Like,
when we talk about I made money in the stock market, well, no, you didn't, because you never sold the stock.
Right, exactly. Until you buy it or sell it, there's nothing made.
There was no taxable
made or lost.
Yeah. But the IRS is going to come knocking at your door with their cut of the money. So when you buy a home with the intent to live in it for a very long duration of time,
it's a long play.
The risk of buying at the wrong price diminishes for every year that you live in there.
Right.
Nobody who has lived in a home for 20 some years is going to say, man, I wish I would have got it for a little bit less.
Right.
Because no home today is worth anywhere close to what it was 20 years ago. And actually, let's talk about 30 years, because that's what the typical mortgage life is. That you 30 years from now.
Oh, absolutely. That's a no-brainer.
Your home.
But what about the guy who says, well, I may only live in this area for 2 years.
Yeah, that's
a tough one, right? That's one. Well, maybe buying's not for you then, unless the only way it would be for you is if you said, hey, when I do leave this area, I'm going to rent this property.
Yes.
Because if you're going to keep that, then we're back to the long play. Real estate's a long play, right? But so if you say, yeah, I'm only going to be living in this area for like 2 years, I might tell that person, maybe you do need to rent. Maybe that's not the best. There are some people who buying is not for them. Number one, if you're only going to be in the area for like 2 years, right? If you're going to be in this area for less than 3 years and you don't want to rent afterwards and retain that real estate. Number two, if you don't have a secure job, right? Number three, if you have no money saved up. Even if you're doing 100% finance and VA loan, you want to have a little bit of money in the bank, right? So like those three things, insecure job, you have zero money in the bank, and maybe four, right? Credit probably is another thing too. So if your credit's not there, that's a no-brainer though. And then if you're not going to, but assuming your credit's there, if your job's not there, you don't have any money in the bank, and you don't plan to be in the area for maybe 2 years at the most, buying's probably not for you.
You bring up a really great point that real estate is always an investment. Even if you're going to live in it, that became an investment. And no matter how long you plan on being in there, have a couple exit plans. Because you might, like you say, if you buy this house, I'm only, the Army moved me to Fort Knox, and I'm only going to be here because the Army's going to move me out 3 years later, because they move people every 3 years, and my goal is to sell it when I leave. Well, what if it was 2006 you bought that house, and now 2009 the Army's telling you to move? You can't sell that house.
No.
So always have a plan B.
Or you can sell it, but just maybe you might take a bath on it.
That actually becomes
a little bit of a haircut.
But for the military, that becomes a problem, because if you have a secret clearance, you let that hit you. Because it'll ruin your credit. Go after your clearance. So the giving up a home, let a foreclosure hit you, or go for bankruptcy.
Put it with a property manager. And
so having a plan, you have a plan C, that maybe I wanted to sell it, but because the market turns, and now the short term, it would be a loss to sell. Turn that into a rental. Let somebody else pay that mortgage off. And which, that was always my plan A, was to just rent them every time the Army caused me to move.
Absolutely. Retain that, move on.
Have a portfolio of rentals.
Absolutely. Let's be honest though too, 2008 was an absolute anomaly. If you go back in 80 years of real estate, that never happened. And there were reasons why that happened that could never happen today, because of the way, basically you manufactured, illegitimate buyers. You created an illegitimate buyer demand by giving financing to people who probably shouldn't have been financed. And at the end of the day, and so you create this fictitious demand, and that's really, at the end of the day, man, that's what happened. So now you end up with this oversupply of homes. You have more homes than you do buyers to actually buy them now, and that's why home prices go down. If you got one person to every 2 homes, they only got one to pick. Like the homes now have to compete for the buyer, not the buyer compete for the homes. So this is where. So I think we're using that to show people that, hey, even if you're scared of 2008, this is how you overcome that fear. But let's be honest, it's just an anomaly anyways, you know what I mean?
like you mentioned, it's kind of more your wheelhouse, but they were giving loans to people on stated income.
Yeah, I mean, if you could fog a mirror, you could get a home loan. For sure. There's no doubt.
There's been laws that were passed since then that you have to do a lot more vetting on your side.
Yes, absolutely.
And I hear it a lot that, the market's going to collapse because they're giving mortgages to people that shouldn't be having them.
Still to this day?
I hear that from people.
That's crazy.
I know.
Ask the people who had to go jump through rings of fire to get home loans if they think they're giving mortgages to people who shouldn't get them.
Yeah. I can tell you the process that I got in 2008 to buy a house in 2009 was super easy.
Yeah.
And then
they just say, all right, let me check your pulse. Yep, you're good.
In 2011, when I went to go buy a home, after all of those laws were passed, it was a nightmare. And I was like, come on, guys, I'm good for it.
Man, and it did overswing a little bit. We're back to a more realistic, like the market that we're in now, I see it like it's legitimate. Like we're in a good market where we're vetting people. There's not a ton of overreach in the underwriting process. A lot of the things they do are more common sense and logical. There are some things that are a little silly, I guess, for an underwriter to do, but for the most part. So, man, we're in a balanced market now. We're balanced in terms of the right mortgage products for the right situations and all of that. The balance that's out of whack a little bit is obviously the supply and demand, but I don't know that that's going to go away anytime soon. No. I think if you ask most builders, they couldn't build them fast enough.
No. The building
we're 10 years out from being more balanced in from a supply and demand. I think maybe that's what I'm reading all of the forecasts to say. So if that's the case, then you know that you're going to have year over year appreciation, right?
Oh yeah.
That's when inflation is actually good, when you already own your home, because that's what appreciation is. It's just inflation on your real estate. Yep. You know what I mean?
And it's leveraged.
Yeah.
Which means it's
the bank
multiplying.
And that's another thing too. People say I'm scared to buy a home, but yet the bank is taking 95% of the risk. You're putting, you know what I mean? Like if you do a 5% down, let's say you do a 3.5% down payment on a home, right? FHA. The bank is taking 96.5% of the risk for you. So you're only putting 3.5% of your own money to buy this property. There's not a huge risk there. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, that's pretty low of a risk. I mean,
well, and then what I mentioned with leverage, let's say you buy a $100,000 home and you put 20% down,
right?
Like a conventional.
Yeah.
And now that home is worth $120,000. It went up 20% in value.
Right.
If we took our $20,000, put it in the stock market, and it went up $20,000
great
value.
Point. Yes.
Different,
yes.
That 20%,
different returns.
20%
on that 200K.
We have to get 100% gain in the stock market to gain that 20%.
Absolutely, yes.
But over here, the home only had to go up 20%.
Right, absolutely.
And that leveraging is so powerful. It's 5 times there.
Yeah.
And now if we go to 3.5%.
That's literally what you just explained. If you talk to super wealthy people, they'll tell you that's exactly how they did it.
Yes.
They used other people's money to buy assets that appreciated.
And so using the FHA at 3.5% down, it just multiplies that leveraging power so much more. And then on a VA, where all you got to do is show up with some prepay of your insurance and some tax and some interest, then especially if you have a Purple Heart or some kind of disability, so you have no funding fee on the loan.
I mean, the costs are so minimal.
It is
the VA aspect, man,
to get in. So you can't even divide by zero because of that zero down payment.
Right.
And now that home went from $100,000 to $120,000 in value, and all you had to do was pay for some insurance and some tax.
Yep. Those are your only expenses. Yeah. And then if you move on to another one, you get a renter to come in and make the payments for you. You know what I mean?
Which is my first home.
Yeah, exactly. And then they pay that leverage off for you. So that's huge.
Yeah, my first home,
Yeah.
They paid it for me.
Right.
And
I mean, that's exactly. And so that's what I'm telling people that are renting homes right now. You know, it's kind of counterintuitive if you are a landlord, right? Like you own properties that you're renting to people. But it's true. It's like, man, if you're in a rental right now and you're renting a home, you're literally paying another guy's mortgage off for him so his family can get rich, basically. You're paying for his future family's wealth by paying his mortgage off for him, you know? So it's like, why not take that on yourself? Now, granted, I know in this area you really can't rent for as much as you can it's going to cost you more to own the home than it is to rent, but over time you will make money on it versus, you know, if people just look at apples to apples, well, I'm only paying $1,000 a month rent here and this mortgage is going to cost me $1,500. That may be true, but you're also never going to make money on that rent, right? That you're paying 100% interest on the rent and you're only paying 6 or 7 on the house.
The other issue with, you got $1,000 of rent today and a $1,500 mortgage today. Next year, that rent's going to go up.
$1,200.
It's $1,200.
Yeah.
The mortgage is still $1,500.
Yeah.
The next
Unless
year,
your taxes go up.
Well, the tax and interest, that's very minimal.
Yeah, yeah.
The principal and interest are fixed. 30 years fixed.
Yeah, you get a fixed rate, fixed mortgage. Absolutely.
Now, 5 years from now, what's this interest? Let's look back 5 years ago.
Could be $1,500 now.
What were rents in Hardin County 5 years ago?
Probably $600-800, and now the average is what, $1,200?
Yeah,
and it's going to continue to climb.
And then let's look back at what were rents 30 years ago in Hardin County.
Yeah, probably $100 or something.
And
$200.
And compare the rent to today. So if we say the rent today is $1,000 and the mortgage is $1,500, drag that out over 30 years.
Yeah,
the mortgage will always stay the same.
Right, fixed
on the
rate,
principal and interest, but that rent can go up.
Absolutely, and it will.
And it will go up.
Yeah.
And after 30 years, you'll still be paying rent.
Yeah.
And this mortgage will be paid off.
Right. And you'll own that piece of real estate.
And there's risk right here.
Yeah.
That what if the person who owns this home doesn't want you to live in it anymore?
Yeah. Gotta go.
You gotta go.
I can sell it.
I want to sell it.
Yeah.
Or I want to put my kid in there.
Right.
Or I want to live in there.
Right.
There's all these reasons that they can kick you out at any time.
Yeah.
But when you own that home, who's going to kick you out?
Right.
So you are going to pay a little bit more up front.
Yeah.
And another complaint I hear when it comes to rent or own is I don't have to pay for repairs or maintenance.
Right.
Which is partially true.
It's built into your rent.
It's built into your rent.
Yeah.
So so when you're the homeowner, you write the check that goes to the repair guy that comes out to fixes whatever the issue is.
Right.
But when you're the renter, you don't pay the property tax.
They factored that into your rent. Yeah.
You don't pay for the repairs, but a portion of your rent was calculated to cover those expenses. And every month, let's call it $100, is going to cover a repair.
Yeah.
And so when the window does break, when the roof needs to get replaced, you've already paid for that roof.
Right.
You just you might not be writing that check.
Yeah.
The landlord will write the check out of the money that they've already earmarked from that rent check.
Yeah, you gotta live somewhere, so why not after 30 years get rich on it? You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? And I think that so we could digress here a little bit on talking about the whole rent thing, because I think you see this a lot in mainstream media. It drives me insane right now. You still see it in mainstream media, especially last year. It's not as bad this year, but last year was really bad. Mainstream media was telling people, just rent. It's cheaper to rent. They're telling people to rent, not buy. And to me, my alarm bells go off. My crazy goes off. It says conspiracy theory. The wealthy want people to be a nation of renters. So because you know what's happening right now? Blackstone, they're a huge hedge fund. They're buying up thousands of single family residences. What do you think they're doing with those?
Yeah, they're going to turn them into rentals.
And rentals, exactly. So if mainstream media is telling people, hey, you need to rent, and then you got these hedge fund, Wall Street, big, huge Wall Street firms buying up tens of thousands of properties to rent to people. That, you know what I mean? I know, that's a stretch, but I smell conspiracy. You know what I mean? That's just food for thought. But when you see that, you start seeing mainstream say one thing and then Wall Street's doing another. I'm going to take what Wall Street's doing and say, if Wall Street's betting on single-family residences in the housing market, and they're buying 40, 50, 100,000 single-family residences, they probably have a little more data than what we do. You know what I mean? So. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
like you mentioned, there are certain people that right now are not.
It's not a good idea.
Position
right.
to buy.
And I get that.
And
that is true.
I wanted to buy a home once, and I went and checked out the market.
Yeah.
And the interest rates were too high. The home prices were too high, and I couldn't afford the payments. And I was a renter for a year. And then I became the homeowner.
Yeah.
I paid
saved.
Saved. I paid off my debts.
That's the key, saving, man. Learning how to save. Yeah.
And then I became the homeowner after a year of renting.
Yeah.
So the goal isn't to be the permanent renter. That's what we're talking about. You got to, renting is just a step to get to the homeowner.
So that person in that situation, you know what I would tell them to do if they weren't prepared for it? They didn't have any savings, they didn't do anything. What I would tell them to do, let's say their rent was $1,000 right now. They wanted to buy a house, and let's just say the house was going to be, the house payment was going to be $1,500. I would tell them to basically factor in that they're paying a $1,500 house payment right now. Pay their landlord $1,000 and then take $500 of it, put it in a high interest savings account. So when interest rates are high, that's one thing you can take advantage of, the interest that the bank is paying you. You can get a high yield savings account where they'll pay you 5% interest on it. Take the $500, put it in that account every month, and then let's say after, I don't know, after a year, right? You got that 500, then you've got at least $6,000 saved up additional that you didn't have before. Now that may not cover your down payment entirely, but it's going to be a big chunk of it, right? On the average home size, $250,000, what's this going to be, like $8-9 for a down payment, basically 3.5% if you're not a veteran or you do USDA. Let's just say FHA, most common. So $8-9 so but you're almost there now, right? Like you're getting close. And this also mentally prepares you for being prepared for that higher mortgage payment, but you've also learned to save. Because I think that's the biggest that's the biggest issue that I'm seeing right now. People, they want to buy a home and they think they're financially prepared, they have a stable job, their credit's solid, but they have no savings, you know what I mean? Or they haven't really, they don't, the B word, right? Budget, not learn how to save, man. And I know it's tough. Like I get it. You know, you got everything's costing more, gas, eggs, all that stuff. Like I totally understand. I got kids, a family too. I see it. It is tough to save, but you got to figure it out. You got to figure it out. You got to be an adult and you got to figure that out. And that is the biggest, I think that's the biggest hole that I see in most people's finances right now. They just don't have a hard time saving. But I think another thing people also don't know is they can't, like we'll digress a little bit here, but another saving is forced savings, which is, you know, a tax refund, right? Like people, that's the government forcing you to save your money. You get it back like it's the government giving you some surprise check, like, yeah, I won the lottery. I'm like, dude, that's your money. Like they just held on.
Paid your taxes.
Yeah, exactly. They held it for you. So take that money and maybe use that. Maybe use that for a down payment because you've already got a savings and you put that together. Or maybe that starts your savings and now you say, hey, this year I'm going to save $100 every week and my partner's going to save $100 every week. We're going to save $200. That's $200 a week. That's $10,000 over a year. Then you got your tax refund of $5,000. You know, I got $15,000 saved up over that year. Now you're ready to buy. You know what I mean?
And $100 a week, if you want to break that down, is only $20 Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
And
it's like 5 trips to Starbucks.
I was say there's you know, your coffee out, your lunch out.
Yeah.
You know, maybe
McDonald's, the Big Mac meal is like $12 now.
Yeah. So I think about those vices. There's a book called was it Automatic Millionaire? This book, and he talks about
automatic draft.
Well, that's what it is. You know, you auto draft it over to your IRA
dollar cost averaging,
and then dollar cost average. But he talks about that the author went on to this show, or this radio show, and the guy asked him, well, what's one tip you would give somebody to improve their financial situation? And he says, you got to have a notepad, take it around with you for 1 week, and write down everything you bought and how much it costs.
Log it,
And the guy
you got an iPhone now. There's all kinds of apps for this.
And he says, oh, that's kind of stupid. How's that supposed to make me save money? And he says, just give it a try. The guy belittles him and he doesn't do it. But then later on, he gets a call from the DJ. He says, I actually gave it a try, and I understand when you write down everything you do, you start seeing those little dollars add up.
Exactly.
$20 a day is, you know,
for lunch.
Monday to Friday is $100. There's 52 weeks. That's $5,000.
Lunch and coffee cost me $20, and for 5 days that was $100.
So you make coffee at home for 25 cents. You pack a lunch for a couple bucks. And now,
and these are things, yeah, I know. And some people are like, I've had people say, well, Ryan, I don't want to live like that. I'm like, well, dude, do you want to rent forever and you want to make somebody else rich, or do you want to own the place that you live and then give that to your family when you die? Like, you want to set your family up for generational wealth. The middle class, that's their number one way to wealth. Like, if you ask most estate attorneys and say, hey, when you're dealing with the middle class here, what is everybody fighting over? It's grandma's house, because that's her biggest asset. It's now worth $500,000 or whatever, and like that's where all the money goes to the family. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Dave,
imagine if she rented. If grandma rented, she don't have that to give to the family.
And,
you know,
like you said, I don't want to live like that. But Dave Ramsey has a great line. He says, "Live like no one else, so that you can live like no one else
later." Yeah. Live like no one else now, so you can live like no one else later. Yeah, I know. So, delayed gratification is what it is.
Sacrifice a little bit of coffee, sacrifice your lunches out, sacrifice, some drinks at the bar.
Yeah, man.
Quit smoking, whatever it is that is your problem.
It's delayed gratification.
And so you can buy that.
Oh, you snuck quit smoking in there. That's
the usual.
Yeah, that's the usual. People are flipping their laptops. Yeah. But no, I agree. And I think to me, it's like all delayed gratification, man. Like at the end of the day.
But then you buy that house.
Yeah.
And as the rents keep going up, the people that are paying rents on fixed income, now they're struggling.
Right.
But you, 30 years from now, what are you doing with yourself? On your fixed income, off Social Security with a paid off house.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Well, it's like we were saying, grandma that bought that house in 1985 for $80,000, right? She bought it in 1985 for $80,000. She was paying 13% interest. Do you think she said, man, rates are too high, I don't want to buy this? Because that same $80,000 house today would sell for $400,000, or more, $450 probably, right? So if she said, hey, rates are too high, and that house is $80,000 and 85, that's just too high. I don't want to buy that house. Just because you want to time the market, and then you wait, and now here you are. Now she's got a $400,000 house. You know what I mean? Like, this is real estate, man. This is what I'm trying to tell people. You can't time the market. Like, I used to think about this stuff. I used to think you could do it too. It can't be done,
Well, think about the people in, 2020 said, oh man, the price of houses went up. I'm not going to buy because they went up too high.
Yeah.
And then 21, what happened? And then 22, what happened?
So think about the people who bought in early 2020, the first 3 months of 2020, they like right now looking back, like you were a market genius. You bought the house in the first 3 months of 2020 before COVID hit. Yeah. So those people look like geniuses, right? Because they got a house for $150,000 that now in 2023 is worth $300,000. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy, man. But it is what it is, and it's never going back. Like, that's the thing I think people need to understand. Yeah. Rates will retract a little bit, but home prices are never going back to what they were. Yeah. This is permanent.
And some people are saying, oh, I see on, pick your online, real estate website, Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, what have you, that prices are coming down.
Yes, thank you for touching on this.
What's really happening, though, is they've listed the house higher than it would be last year.
Right.
But they're just bringing the price down some, and then until a buyer grabs it, and it's still selling higher than it was a year ago.
Perfect example, man. I hear that all the time. An easy way to explain, so that same house you explained was $300,000 last year, right? Yeah. Well, this year they listed it for $350,000, but then they brought the price down to $325,000. Yeah. So now they sold it for $325,000, but it's still more than it was last year at $300,000.
Yeah, but people are saying, well, the prices are coming down because I saw it sell at $325,000.
Yeah. They think year over year they're coming down. Yes, that's a great point, man. Yeah. Like that is something I talk about all the time.
They're just lowering the price to attract the buyer.
It's misperceived.
But it's still an increase compared to where it was.
And so people see that as home prices are coming down. It came down from its over listed price.
Original listing.
Yeah, right. No, that's a great point, man. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So on to outside of that, I guess if we want to touch on something that's probably a little touchy in this community, we want to kind of go into something that you had brought up recently. Sure. You ready to segue over to this? I know we didn't make a smooth transition.
We've had a few segues.
We didn't make a smooth transition to this, but the what people refer to as the halfway houses and all the legislation with the halfway houses that are popping up all around town. Yeah. Not really a halfway house, I guess, right? Like technically.
Yeah, the recovery residents. Yeah, that's something new that Kentucky's been working on, that there's legislation to, regulate these and make them certified across the state so that there's a standardization.
Right. Why are they doing that? Why are they putting in more regulation?
I don't really know the why, but I know the what is that they're doing it.
Do you think, is that intent good? Like, is the intent of putting in more regulation good? Because, it depends on your political spectrum. More regulation could be bad, less regulation can be good, like depends. So, but in this situation, is it a good thing?
Well, let's talk about what the houses are first off. That people think they're like a halfway house, like someone's getting out of jail. They're getting, my neighbor's or former prisoner, if you will. But really, they're for people that are trying to recover from some sort of drug addiction. First off. And from my understanding, listening to the mayor here in Elizabethtown, he was given that briefing because Elizabethtown has its own rules that mirror a lot of what is going on in the state. Okay. And then in his brief, he was talking about, or I guess it was the attorney, for the city, was talking about that. These homes are just a safe place where there's not supposed to be any drugs or alcohol for these people to live together and get clean. But there's a lot of complaints medicine. Though, right? Yeah, there's no medicine going on there. And
there's a lot of complaints because people are loitering around the houses, they're in neighborhoods, and so is that where some of the blowback is coming?
I would imagine that's probably what it is.
So if you own a nice home in a nice neighborhood and then they buy one of these houses in that area next to your house, does that present an eyesore and impact your real estate if you're trying to sell your home?
Ideally, I'm sure that's what the complaint is. And that's why they're trying to standardize it and have it. So it's a certification process so that the home is standardized. It meets these rules for you to operate as a recovery residence. And like you said, there's probably complaints that this home is next to my home. And there's these people that are acting unruly or what have you.
Or just loitering, but lack of a better word.
The question I would pose would be, if we didn't have these programs to help people get better, what would the alternative be? And if we didn't have programs to help people with
and if they don't have here's another thing too, if they don't have transportation, they almost have to be in a more urban area where they can walk places conveniently. But again, it's kind of the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard. I know we need them, but I don't want that by my house. You know what I mean? Like,
but if we didn't have this program at all, where we didn't have these recovery residences, if we didn't have like the drug court that Hardin County just had their 25th anniversary this week, if we didn't have programs that helped rehabilitate this problem, what would the alternative be? We would put people in prison. They would go to jail for whatever period of time as their sentence, and then we would just cut them loose. And then we'd have a homeless problem. We would have a drug problem.
Absolutely.
And they would still be dependent on drugs, which would then increase crime. So now we have a problem of not people loitering in this neighborhood. They would be loitering around the city.
But what do you hear about? So I've heard in E-Town, and specifically since all these houses have been up here, that crime has increased anyways. Petty crimes, people's cars getting broken into. Is that true? This is just anecdotal, so I don't know for sure.
I don't know enough of the crime stats of Elizabethtown.
I can't speak on stats. I'm kind of giving anecdotal evidence right now, but like just from feedback from people that I know. But and I'm hearing that, and obviously people want to relate that to these houses because there's so many. We're downtown right now, so like there's a dozen of them just right around where we're at within a 1 mile radius. Probably.
Well, the stat that the mayor put out, I forget what it was, but it was like hundreds of them in Elizabethtown. It was like, wow, it's hard to believe that there was
that many in E-Town. So is Radcliffe having that? Is there that many?
I was unaware of the existence of it
until E-Town.
E-Town mentioned it, that there was that many that even know that this is really going on at that level. We know drugs are a problem, but
to have that many
big of a problem.
Because I think ultimately the idea though is it's a cash cow business for these people setting these operations up though, right?
I would imagine.
They're getting state funded. You can set up. You can buy a home. You say, hey, I'm a what are they? Recovery residence. And then you get your automated check from the government as a business there every month, right? Like if these companies that own these, because these aren't nonprofits that own these, right?
It sounded like from the briefing that it was
profit.
There could be you could just buy a single family home
and turn it into a recovery residence.
You'd have to get it certified.
Yeah. But the certification process is really low. The bar is set low.
Yeah.
I say, hey, this is a recovery residence. Get certified by the state, and then the state sends me a check for every head that I stuff into that house, right, from there on. And I think this is the blowback from the community is they're like, hey, man, we get it. People need help. But the way it's being done right now is profit-driven, and it's like how many other houses we can get in here. We don't have any. There's, like you said, there's really no medical help there. There's no therapy or therapeutic.
Well, that's part of the rules.
Yeah.
Is that they can't.
Currently, or
that's what they
proposal
in the
proposed rules.
Well, there's 4 levels of certification.
Yeah.
And it was like from reading the rules, it said that people can come. Like you call 911, they can come and do first aid on you. But it was like they can't administer medicine to the people.
Yeah.
You have to be able to take care of yourself. So if you have your own prescriptions, you're going to keep a prescription. I'm not going to hand you pills every day like you see in movies at like some hospital. They live there independently. Yeah. And it's just like a place where it's supposed to be cleansed and what have
So I think that, I think something probably needs to happen. I don't know what. I don't know how you resolve this problem. Because I'm like you, like something that you need something in place for that. You can't just imprison everybody that has a drug problem or something.
And you and I, we work in the housing industry. We believe that everybody has a right to housing.
Of course.
So it's great.
But I also could see it as and you as a real estate agent, like let's say you've got a client that now they live in a home that they love, but now they got one of these residences next to them, and there's five, let's say 5 guys that are living in the residence, and they just maybe linger out on the front porch every day. Maybe they got a family and they feel a little uncomfortable about it. And some people may say, well, why do they feel uncomfortable about that? I don't know. It just makes people, so let's just say it does. It makes them feel comfortable. So I get this feedback from people in the community. That's the thing. And they're like, hey man, I want to sell my house now. I don't want to live here anymore because of this recovery residence. And so people are really saying this stuff. And so now you got to come in and sell this home, but now you're showing the property to potential new buyers, and you got the same thing next door. And now people are like, I don't want to buy this house right here. So now, you know what I mean? Now you've created a real estate issue, a neighborhood issue, a community issue that is like, I don't know. It seems to be, so we got to find a balance here. And I don't,
Well, Elizabethtown has hired an individual who would, it's like an oversight on this program for the Elizabethtown specific rules. So
is that new?
Yes. Yeah. So the mayor announced it at that brief that they would be hiring somebody, and then it was a couple days later they put out an announcement on Facebook.
Nice.
I believe it was a retired police officer they brought in to work on that.
Right.
That would work on I believe it was the certification and just make sure
meeting some standards. Make sure people aren't just throwing them up, just collecting a check and saying, because I think that has been the assertion that's been made. I don't know. I'm just trying to collect information from people. I have made no judgment on this matter yet. I'm just getting the information from the community and people that I know. The assertion is being made is that they're just cash cows. So
but what is really interesting though, I would like to get that individual, who was working for Elizabethtown. Maybe he could come on here and we could talk to him.
That'd be great.
We could see.
That would be great. Get some feedback, see what they're seeing, saying, hey.
And just see what the program is about. What the levels
if they're bringing oversight, that means somebody's in there taking advantage of something. So they're probably trying to bring somebody in to filter those people out.
Why did the state make the rules? There had to be. There's always a reason to make a law.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't make
generally somebody was abusing the process or So, interesting, man. We'll have to pick up on that next time. So,
hopefully, they will be wanting to come out.
Exactly.
And hopefully we get some politicians on here and we can,
that would be great. I would love to get some feedback from them on this matter.
Well, not just this, but
real estate in general. And
we have, in Hardin County, we have a special election coming up.
Oh yeah, you could talk a little bit about that before we wrap.
In northern Hardin County, we had a vacated House seat for one of the districts there. And so there's
local politics.
Yeah, so
we talked about this before.
Yeah, it's going to be a special election, and so the special election still that. Sorry, I was reading the message that came in there from our viewer.
Oh,
yeah,
something to address.
No, it's all right. I was saying if they wanted to talk about something. But anyway, we have a special election coming on, and I'd just like to interview the two candidates.
Oh, that would be very cool. Yeah.
And I'm not tracking if the Republicans and Democrats have put up their nominees yet, but it's a very short window. They had last week. I think they announced it, and it's like mid-March is the election.
Yeah.
And then in May we're gonna have the primaries for whatever positions are gonna have primaries for the election in November. So whoever wins this election in March will be there, I guess, until November. They got to rerun in November.
That's a short window of time. Yeah.
They were elected for a few months, and hopefully they get reelected and are got to fight for the campaign.
Nice.
But we have a few, like in Radcliffe, there's, I believe, 3 candidates for city council that are trying to unseat some incumbents. So I'd like to talk with them and see why we should vote for them in Radcliffe. And maybe here in Elizabethtown, you've got some that we could talk with and get them on and see what is it that they want to bring to Elizabethtown that the people down here should
the goal
vote for
is.
them.
I'd be interested to get their perspectives.
All right.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, but that's...
Yeah, good talk. Appreciate it.
Yeah. That's everything I've got. And
we'll wrap
News Enterprise, my next article's coming out. It kind of follows on with the series of our controversy of things going on in the housing market. So...
Oh yeah,
for that.
Be on the lookout for that.
For that on News Enterprise.
That should rattle some cages, maybe.
So.
But that's what we'll touch on next time. On the next one, let's touch on some of the real estate commission stuff. This has been in the news. I think a lot of consumers are probably hearing about this stuff.
The lawsuits.
Let's hit on that next time. We're going to hit that. That'll be a juicy one.
I don't want to talk about the article too much because get published in News Enterprise first. And then we'll talk. But
we'll get into some of those juicy topics on the next one.
We had a great conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Always.
Yeah,
Thank you
got it, man.
for watching.
Appreciate it. Thanks, y'all.